Good morning, everyone. Today's lesson is the ninth day of our rhetorical analysis unit. Most of class students will be spending working on their rough draft, but to get them to doing that successfully, there are two key things that I want to cover with these slides. And if you are not with us, just know that on Thursday, you need to come to class with a rough draft done. And for that draft, these slides will help you get there. So for academic notes, we're going to talk about citing and how it fits into a rhetorical analysis essay. And then the rest of class, it will be writing the body and conclusion and what resources you have. So for your academic notes, for today's lesson, click on this link. And when you go to the link, you need to take notes in your academic notes that answers these three questions. Why in the world do we have to cite within an essay? When do we cite? And how do we cite? So pause the video and do that for your academic notes. The other thing that I just want to reiterate with all of you, and we'll get into it a lot more in Unit 3, is what type of text that you write requires citing. You'll see here there are 3 arrows. So anytime we summarize information, we paraphrase or we quote, we have to give credit to the source that it originates from. So that pretty much tells us that whether or not we're using authors' direct words or their ideas, it requires an in-text citation. And then the other thing is on the slide, it asks you to take your source where it was published and using the MLA 9.0 research tool in our Canvas general instructions, create an MLA citation for your article or TED Talk, because that will be used at the end of your essay and it will be graded as a part of something you have to do. So I just also want you to know that when it comes to citing information in the body of your paper, you have to think any kind of academic work, every reference has 2 parts. So there's the in-text citation and then the list of sources. So in MLA, the list of sources is called works cited. So your list of sources is just going to be one source. That's why at the end you will just type works cited, and it doesn't even have to be on a separate page, and you will have the citation for the essay or TED Talk that you wrote. But within the text, you're going to do something a little bit different. So normally, if you learn from the previous article from the Slick Pressbook article that you just looked at, you know that you have to start by always putting the author's last name with the page number in the source. Well, because you just have one source, it almost seems redundant to keep putting the author's last name in parentheses. So for this assignment, whenever you are quoting or paraphrasing or summarizing your source, just put the page number. Because more than likely in the attributed phrase, like as you lead into it and you put the author's last name, it's already there in the sentence anyway, or the previous sentence. So again, that would just be a redundant experience. And then the reader doesn't have to guess what source it came from anyway, because there's just one source. So again, in-text citation for this particular paper, all you have to worry about is page numbers, where it came from. If you are doing a TED Talk, it needs to be the time on the actual TED Talk video in parentheses. So that's what you need to do to cite your work. Again, anytime you summarize, anytime you quote, or you paraphrase their work, you have to give them credit internally in an in-text citation. One other thing to remember is the period always goes after the in-text citation. There's only one time it doesn't, and if you are quoting more than 4 typed lines long, and I doubt any of you will pull something from your essay that's at least 4 typed lines long. You shouldn't be doing that. Otherwise, quoting takes over your paper, and remember, you're not writing a research paper. So just remember, wherever you end your sentence where you have either summarized, quoted, or paraphrased, you're going to use parentheses. You're going to put the page number inside of the parentheses, and then after the final parenthesis mark, then you put the period. And you can see the example. So this first one right here that I'm just going to highlight right now, that is what your in-text citations should always look like. All right, with that idea, I just want to point out some resources as you start to build your essay, how to write the body paragraphs and get to 4+ pages. So you should be have come to class with an introduction. And so you notice that I made that circle smaller. And today we're going to focus on the body paragraphs. So I just want to review again by looking at some of your samples. Remember, this is a highly academic essay. It's written in third person. No be verbs, all academic verbs. Remember, you're trying to prove what the writer did in order to make the text successful. So here is kind of a graphic. If you think of the inverted triangle there, that's your introduction. So you guys should all have that done, at least a good rough draft of it. And so that leads you into your thesis sentence of what you're trying to prove. And remember, you should have some different rhetorical strategies that the writer used to make the text work. And so each of those strategies then become body paragraphs that you will use to build your essay. So let's say that you have 3 strategies. Well, to get to 4 pages, it's going to be hard to do that if you only, let's say you're talking about that the writer appealed to logos successfully. Well, if they've done that, remember, you can write more than 1 paragraph on appealing to logos. So for each of your elements, don't think that you're writing a 5-paragraph theme. You're going to have more than 5 paragraphs. So you've already got 2 paragraphs with your introduction. So now whether you have 3 parts you're focusing on or 2 parts, whatever the number is, just think in your mind, you can have multiple paragraphs for each part. And then once you do that, you're going to create this topic sentence and then transition into the tool, the evidence. Remember, then you think ICE and then analyze. So this kind of gives you a background, like I just said. If the rhetorical tool was humorous stories in the body, then think I've got to do a couple of paragraphs on that. And then moving into emotional diction, a couple of paragraphs on that. And then finally, appeals to logos, at least 2 paragraphs there. So you can see that the body paragraphs are much longer in relationship to the entire essay that you write. And then your conclusion can be 1 or 2 paragraphs long. So this slide, I'm not going to take time to, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's important that you look at it. I want you to check your thesis sentence and make sure that you have what, how, and why embedded into your opening paragraph somewhere. Notice I took each of those 3 elements and color coordinated them for you if you're not here in class. And then after, I also have 3 other important checklists for you guys to think about your thesis sentence, whether or not you have done it correctly. So look at this example. Notice that it is 1 sentence long. So pretty long thesis, but it covers those 3 elements plus those 3 characteristics that I have highlighted right now. I also then want you to think about your introductory paragraph. Check to make sure that you have all of the elements of your introductory paragraph. And so I color coordinated those as well. Notice the what, how, and why at the bottom. Notice I've highlighted it right here. It takes over the majority of your paragraph, but all this other stuff right here are these elements right there. So you have to make sure that you include those in your introduction as well. So this is a really good checklist for you to check over and make sure that you have everything in place for your introductory paragraph. Remember, once you've done that, then you write a summary paragraph before you move into paragraph number 1 of your body. Now, once you get to your body paragraphs, again, think of the old sandwich metaphor that your teachers have used years ago, where you have a topic sentence. I use the word attribution all the time. That's where you signal who's saying something. So this is where you're going to use your author's last name, and then move into the evidence, which I called proof. And then just remember the significance of the analysis, or it needs to be a lot more than your evidence. So that's in pink. So in this one, notice that this particular paragraph that I build with a sandwich, it actually has 2 layers of meat. If you think of the quotes as meat. And so there's 2 sections of blue and 2 analysis sections after each one. So that is a sample body paragraph. Remember, when you write a rhetorical analysis essay, you have to quote. You don't want long quotes. You want short embedded quotes written into the context of your own writing. So here is a great resource that Harvard has put on their writing webpage. And I'm just going to move this around for a second so you can look at it. But if you look at this, when you go to this link, you'll notice that there are all these how-tos, and they, like here, for example, this first one's integrating sources. So it kind of talks about how you do that. And I'm just going to click on a couple of others so you can kind of see them. Anyway, and it gives you some examples of doing that. So remember, it's important. You have to have quotes in your paper for this one. Don't let your quotes take over your essay, but you have to have quotes in every body paragraph. So look at the bold words on this slide, and just make sure when you integrate your quotes, it flows naturally in the context of your own writing. There's another Pressbook article that explains how to make your writing flow. Like, this is a paragraph when you start pulling other people's work into the context of your own writing. Sometimes it sounds like 2 or 3 different writers, like if you had multiple sources, and you don't want to do that. You want to keep your voice consistent all the time. And it also talks about here, like this one, if your lead in, if you introduce the quote and it's a full sentence, notice, please pay attention to this, that if it's a full sentence, you use a colon here. And then this is a long quote, so it's kind of doing its own thing down here. So read that article, and it shows you how to integrate quotes into your context of your own writing fluently. In your packet, you have a couple of sample student essays. And so if you'll go to them, and first of all, find the thesis sentence in the introduction so you kind of get an idea of what these students were writing about. And then after that, pick a couple body paragraphs, and with crayons, again, we're not turning this in, but just to see how to make writing flow with evidence and attributive phrases and analysis so that it all kind of goes together as one nice paragraph rather than a whole bunch of different writing styles. The other thing, when you were color coordinating, remember I said here that the analysis part is green. So just remember that this is an analysis essay, and if you want to get a good grade on it, you have to have lots of analysis in each of your body paragraphs. So use all your resources, use all of the tools that I've given you up to this point, and get to work. Notice here that I said that to look over conclusions in your sample rhetorical analysis to kind of get a feel for how you want to end your paper. So between now and Thursday, you're finishing this draft and being ready for peer review on Thursday. Thank you. Good luck.